Welcome back to Gallagher Convention Centre, and of course reflecting on 25 years of the South African Constitution, and this has been a 3-day event, culminates today, and some very, very important discussions have been had. And I'm joined now by Dr. Mashabane, who is the Director General in the Department Justice and Constitutional Development. Doc, thanks so much for stopping by to speak to us.
Good morning,
it is
and thank you.
such an important event. You know, the Constitution is the lifeblood, essentially, of this nation. And in reflecting on 25 years of its implementation, what would be your overarching conversations around this Constitution?
Look, the past 2 days has been a very excellent 2 days in terms of the discussion of how far we have gone in implementing the Constitution. So we looked at a wide range of issues. You know, the first day the President was here and he himself covered a number of issues that are part of the program. And he raised, with us, a number of challenges that we needed to debate. So issues around the transformation of the economy as a critical imperative in building a constitutional democracy is part of what was discussed. Fighting corruption as a constitutional imperative. These are the current challenges. And some of the discussion yesterday as well focused on the capacity of the municipalities. We know the challenges that the municipalities are facing. Municipalities are a government that is actually close to the people where service delivery should happen. So those were the issues that we're looking at, the role of the legislature in holding the executive and everyone accountable for the implementation of the Constitution. And of course today, we still have critical issues like the land question, progress on the land reform, redistribution and restitution within the constitutional context. That's part of what will be discussed. And later, of course, the governance and electoral reform to say, past 25 years, what has been the experience of implementing the Constitution in governing this country? What reforms are required? And now, of course, looking at the Constitutional Court judgment that proposes a major, electoral change. And finally, of course, we'll look at the state of South Africa in the world, international law and international relations. And you can imagine, our Constitution recognizes international law, and as a country, of course, even in our preamble, it says that we as a country, when we adopted the Constitution for South Africa to join the family of nations as a responsible global citizen guided by its Constitution. So those are the things that will be finalized today, will be discussed and say what has been the lived experience of the past 25 years. Sakina will understand when the Constitution was adopted, it was an aspirational document. You couldn't make reference to any experience. But quarter of a century down the line, I think it is time to say what has been the lived experience, the lofty ideals, the promises, the aspirations contained in it. How far have we gone, in fact, realizing those for the majority of the people of this country?
And what is hampering us from actually basically seeing that come true for the majority of South African citizens. But also, if we think about what happens beyond this, in terms of the process, so we're having this and then what? Because South Africans, frankly, are tired of talk shops.
They are indeed. But part of what I think with the guidance of the Minister for Justice was that we needed this debate so that with all the despair, the challenges that South Africans are saying to say, and others thinking that maybe the challenge is the Constitution, the general reflection over the past 2 days, I think, is an acknowledgement that the problem is not with the Constitution, because the Constitution is a broad framework, but the problem is with the implementation. And that's what we need to deal with, because the Constitution won't be comprehensive and cover every aspect of life. But what we need is an appreciation by all of us as South Africans that this is our grand norm, this is our foundational law that we must all respect. But at the same time, realize that it contains the aspiration and it is catalytic as well. It can help us transform our society. But the biggest challenge we have as well, Sakina, is that the level of knowledge of and understanding of the Constitution.
Whose fault is that?
The delegates
who needs to take responsibility for that?
Government must take responsibility. And that's part of the way forward. To say, from this discussion, how do we localize this discussion? This is a national dialogue. You have high-level experts, eminent persons.
And that's part of the criticism about this particular sitting. Because there is a feeling that this should have been taken to the people whose lived experience you are trying to actually encapsulate here. Because, again, the people sitting here, the people who wrote the Constitution, some of them, those who are responsible for implementing it.
Look, we have a good balance. You have people from community advice offices, you have people from the religious sector.
But who are those people?
Look, there are mainly...
There
are
needs
people
to be
who
greater
work-
transparency,
Yes.
Doc Mashabane,
Yes.
in terms of who government also allows into these spaces to
Yes.
make input.
You look at the program, predominantly, if you look at the panelists, you don't find a lot of government officials. There's few occasions like today on the land question, because the Minister of Agriculture is very critical.
But I looked
come.
at that list,
Yes.
and these are people who generally would get expression, on platforms generally.
Yes.
And when are we going to get to a point where we listen to the ordinary South African?
That's
on
what
the
I was
street?
coming to, and say point taken, and that has been acknowledged. Even when we came here, we knew that that's a major issue. So from here, we want to localize this debate to every district, to every municipality level and all of that, to have South Africans have a conversation and say between 25 years of the Constitution and us on a penultimate year toward 30 years of democracy. This should be the discussion, and this is what we commit to do, at least as the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, to start this discussion across the country, have South Africans in a language that they understand, have the discussion about the Constitution and say, this Constitution that is well acclaimed, said to be the best in the world, sacrosanct, how much does it deliver for them, and how much do the people that they elect to represent them at local government, provincial and national respect and appreciate the fact that they have a constitutional mandate, they have a responsibility on their shoulders to empower and improve
But
the
not
lives
as a
of
tick
ordinary
box
people.
exercise, but in order to really hear South Africans in
Yes.
terms of how they feel about the Constitution, and also perhaps things that government may not agree with the general population on.
Precisely, that's the whole idea, that we can promise you, that this is not going to be a whitewash of some sort, it's not going to be a government-driven exercise. There are academics here, there are lawyers, there are civil society activists, there are religious leaders, all people from all walks of life. We're making a commitment to them to say we want to work with them. Go to the ground where there are challenges of potholes, challenges of water and service delivery, and say, let's look at the Constitution. Those that have been given the responsibility, to what extent do they understand this Constitution?
Unfortunately, we have to leave it there, because I'd be interested to know when they actually do not comply. Those are responsible and tasked with, upholding the ideals of this widely lauded Constitution. What happens then? But we have to leave that there for the time being. Doc Mashabane is the Director General speaking to us here